One in Three is intended for mature audiences. Episodes contain explicit content and may be triggering as they often include violence and other varying forms of abuse such as emotional, psychological, sexual, and physical. In most cases, names have been changed to protect all involved. Please note, statements and opinions of guests do not necessarily reflect those of my own. Hi, warriors. Welcome to One in Three. I'm your host, Ingrid. Leaving an abusive relationship is never simple, especially when that relationship involved a narcissist or coercive control. My guest today, Dr. Lisa, specializes in exactly that. She's here to share insight and practical guidance to help you better understand and navigate the complexities of recovery. Here's Dr. Lisa. Hi, Dr. Lisa. Thank you for joining me, and welcome to One in Three.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you for having me. It's really a privilege, and I'm really excited to be here with you today.
I am so excited for this as well. So before we get into our conversation, can you just give us a little bit of a background so we get to know you some?
Okay. Well, this is kind of my third career. If anybody had ever told me that I'd have 3 careers in my lifetime, I never would have believed them. I'm a retired diabetic limb salvage and wound treatment specialist. I did that for the first 10 years of my career. I did that as a single mom for the first 5 years, getting through medical school and getting through surgical residency. So I always tell people my girl and I went to school together. It was really fun going to UC San Diego to visit when she was considering colleges. She's now much older, but we went into the chemistry lecture hall, and it's huge, right? It's a UC system. And I said, "Hey, baby, do you recognize this room? You've been here." She's like, "Mama, I've never been here." I go, "Yeah, you have." She's, "Mama, this is the first time I've been on this campus." I go, "No, it's not. I did my whole last quarter with you here. We sat in this room. My last class was chemistry. And I would put you in the sling and just sit right in the back of the classroom with you. So yeah, you've been in this lecture hall." So it's kind of fun. It was kind of fun going through all that with her and letting her see, as a woman, we can do all things. There are just seasons in which we can do them all well, right? So I did that for my first 10 years. I retired in 2006. I have 4 children. My 2 middle needed some extra help with their learning challenges. They both had learning challenges. One was more severe than the other, and I just had to make a decision at that time. I couldn't do a full surgical practice and meet their needs. And it wasn't a job for a nanny or a grandma. It was a job for mom. And I realized that there were many of me, well, not many, I'm going to say 3 at that time in the Southwest region that did diabetic limb salvage and wound treatment. But there was only one of me at home that could do what I could do. So I closed my practice and drove my charts over to my good friend and said, "Listen, I sent out a letter. They know I'm retiring, and take good care of my patients." And then for the next 15 years, I stayed home with all of my kids, helped my third, who didn't understand the spoken word when he was born. All we were Peanuts parents. So it was very intensive therapy for him. And I can say I would never, people go, "Do you wish you had never retired?" I go, "No. I know that boy just graduated from USC a few years ago and designs and builds sets all over the world. Like, he's really a beautiful human being." All 4 of my kids are beautiful human beings. But during that time, I got involved with a evangelical megachurch in Southern California and spent my first 5 years in MOPS in leadership, which a lot of you in the Christian world know as mothers of preschoolers. And after that, I was asked to launch a Bible study and a women's leadership program that I knew nothing about. I'm a surgeon. I don't know anything about leadership. I don't know anything about anything. And I was like, well, okay. And by the grace of God, it survived the first year. And it was a really beautiful experience. There were 160 women every year, and they would come in and we would basically apply God's word and figure out what they were supposed to do with their lives. Because many of us in that circle are raised to believe that it's to be a mom and a wife is your highest calling. And to have them be reoriented that no, as a Christ follower, your highest calling is to be an image bearer of Christ. And if that plays out, that you're a mother and a wife, then yeah, then that's where I guess you would say that your highest calling is. But we all have a calling in this world, and we're all called and born at a time of this because it's a specific work only for us to do. And as I was walking through that, there were women that were coming to me each year that were really in bad marriages, like abusive marriages, that I would be having to walk with them with the church through and realize the church wasn't providing support for them. There came a point in my marriage where I realized that I had to make the decision to stay or go. And I had to start preparing to do so. And so I stepped away from women's leadership and I spent years preparing. And I finally came to a point where I let my husband know that it was time for us to separate and it was time for me to leave. And I can't talk too much about that on a public forum. All I'll say is that our passion is born from our ashes. Today, I am now a narcissistic abuse and coercive control specialist. I'm a betrayal trauma-informed coach. It's what I do. It's what I love. I'm a domestic violence abuse specialist. I really don't like to use the word violence because it intimates to this world that someone has to put a hand on you. And most forms of abuse in this world never involve a bruise. They involve something much more insidious called coercive control, which is what I specialize in. And it's what I help women realize they are experiencing, because most women that come to me don't understand that what is going on in their marriages isn't because of them. It's happening to them.
And then the person that they started the relationship with was never a real person.
No, and that is the really hardest part of the grieving with my clients is I let them know there will be no healing. There will be no movement forward unless two things are done. And one, that is grieving what you thought you had, because what you thought you had never existed, right? Something was being presented to you, and that is not what the reality of your life was. And the second thing is that you do need to accept the reality of the circumstances in which you find yourself and which you were living, because unless we can live in that reality, unless we can align what happened to us with the reality of who was doing it to us, we can't move on. We're stuck. And it's very hard to reconcile. It's very hard to reconcile that the person that was meant to love, protect, provide for you, partner with you, that they were doing things to make you feel that you were less than, that you could find nothing better, that there was something wrong with you, that you had some sort of mental illness and you should consider being medicated, that your friends wouldn't understand, that your family wasn't for you, that they are the only ones that are for you. And that's how it starts, is the alienation is very, very insidious. And it's one of the primary tools a coercive controller uses, is to isolate you from your family and friends and your community. So the only person that you're relying on, the only person that you're looking to see and reflect who you are, is your partner.
Right. And I definitely want to get into all the details of coercive control, because there's a lot of misunderstandings there. And, it is becoming part of the legal definition of domestic abuse in certain states and different countries across the world. So I want to focus a lot on that. But before we get into that, there are now not all of these personalities turn somebody into an abuser necessarily in a domestic situation, but there are a lot of personality disorders that are included with abusers. And those are psychopath, sociopath, and narcissist. And I think there's a lot of confusion in between what those are. And it, in the healing aspect, sometimes it does help to understand what your abuser may have been diagnosed with. I think it definitely helps, or it stops minimizing the overuse of especially the word narcissist. I think a lot of people overuse that. And in that respect, I think it is important to understand what these personality disorders are and how they can influence what's happening to you. And maybe actually understanding what these personality disorders are, it may help somebody understand more the situation that they currently are in. So do you mind just going through each of those and explaining to us what those are and what that can mean for us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's still a part of our academics that say it, unless you're licensed and qualified, you can't diagnose narcissism. And yet Dr. Romani just came out with a great book. It isn't you. It isn't you. I think it isn't you. I could be wrong. Her latest book. And she's like, people say that, yet when you're the person who's experienced it, you can look at the cluster of behaviors. And if the clusters of behaviors fit, well, isn't that how we usually assign a diagnosis to anybody, is by a cluster of behaviors? And with narcissism and sociopathy and psychopathy, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a cluster of behaviors. And to be quite honest, very rarely is a narcissist, a psychopath, or a sociopath ever diagnosed, because they don't ever think anything's wrong with them. So they don't ever go in to get therapy, or let alone be diagnosed. And the closest that they'll get usually is marriage counseling. But the only reason they're showing up to marriage counseling is to make sure that the counselor knows how broken you are and what you're doing that you need to change to make the marriage better, so that you could have a good marriage, because they're an absolute beautiful individual, and they're loving and kind and compassionate. And that's how they show up. And when we show up, we are reactive, we are upset, we are beyond being able to function, because nobody that we've talked to about what's going on with us understands. And worse than that, it will be something where not only is your trauma being put upon you, but then because you're the person who's willing to do the work, the counselor then looks to you, because you're the easy target to get to implement changes to try to make some movement in the marriage. And that's the problem with marriage counseling. When you're married to one of these personality types, it's contraindicated. You should never go to couples counseling if you're married to one of these personality types, because they show up as very charismatic and caring, and all of the focus is put on you. And then you end up experiencing therapeutic abuse on top of the narcissistic abuse and the coercive control that you're experiencing at home. And everything that personality type is learning in therapy, they are learning it, they are internalizing it, they're learning the verbiage, they go home, they weaponize it, and they use it against you. So when we're talking about these personality styles, there are some people believe that there's some type of insanity involved in it. And then there's another line of thinking, like Peter Salerno, who I really admire, that they're sane. They know exactly what they're doing. They're extraordinarily strategic about it. Nothing is happenstance. Although we spend most of our times in those relationships thinking that they didn't mean what they did, or if they had only known how we felt about something, they wouldn't have taken that action or said those things. And that's inaccurate. It's absolutely inaccurate. They're very strategic. Everything they do has a purpose. So let's go back to the base. Let's go back to domestic abuse. Let's go back to a mindset, because all of this revolves around a mindset. This entire world is steeped and embedded in patriarchy and misogyny. We just went through the Me Too movement. A lot of people will say, we made a lot, we held a lot, we got a lot of ground in the Me Too movement. And I'm going to disagree, because I'll tell you what, these years later, I don't see a lot of difference in our justice system with the care or concern or understanding or the care to learn on the part of our justice system, our attorneys and our judges, to actually understand what coercive control is, so that they can actually implement justice and care for those they're meant to protect. So when we're talking about a mindset, when we talk about patriarchy and misogyny, we're talking about entitlement, right? Patriarchy and misogyny bears out a mindset of entitlement. And in that entitlement, there's an innate sense of the right to exert control over those in your sphere of influence. Everything else is born out of that. So when we're talking about a partner sexually acting out, having multiple affairs, having emotional affairs, when we're talking about the fact that you don't have a credit card in your name, that you don't have access to the bank accounts, when you're at home and you're told that because you're the wife, you need to submit and do things the way your partner wants them done. When you find that you're in a relationship where, as long as we're all doing what your partner wants to do, it's all roses and butterflies. But the minute that you state that you don't want to go to a specific restaurant because it doesn't make your stomach feel well, and you end up going someplace else, there's that underlying verbiage the entire time of why we couldn't go to a certain restaurant because of mommy. And it's mommy's fault that we couldn't go a specific place. And there's always a sense of punishment and retribution. If you disagree, if you speak your voice, you'll find in these relationships that if you actually look back on them, even when you can think of the good memories and you can think of the wonderful things done for you, they were never just for you. It was always because it benefited his needs or somebody else's needs that he wanted to impress or he wanted to align with them. In those homes, everybody learns their place. Everybody figures out how they're going to cope to get along. And it's very ironic that these men will walk around and say, oh, well, happy wife, happy life. And that's the farthest thing from the truth, right? We learn to adjust because we know there will be no happy wife, happy life if with our goals and our needs don't align with theirs, right? So in those homes, as long as everybody's following what makes dad happy and nobody's pushing against him, life's pretty peaceful. Most of the time in those homes, you will not notice till your kids get to the age where they start utilizing their voice. And once they start utilizing their voice, your partner will attempt to make consequences more severe for them because his job is to keep everybody inside his box. His job is that when you go out, everybody mirrors off it. He gets to mirror off of your entire family and how beautiful it is. for the entire world to see what a beautiful man he is, because look at his beautiful family, right? When you start voicing your own opinion, that's not tolerated, and that's a wound. Whether you are an abuser, a narcissist, a psychopath, a sociopath, the minute you step outside the box, that's when the physical abuse starts. Most people don't realize that. They just think that's why I say abuse and not violence. Because most abusers keep you under wraps, in their box, presenting to the world how they want to present by the use of coercive control. When we're talking about narcissistic personality traits, there is a spectrum, right? People can have traits, and then they can have the disorder. And yeah, I will say that, especially in this political climate, the word narcissist is being thrown around a lot, right? When I'm working with my clients, though, and that's the thing, right? It would be good to have a diagnosis. I'd really love to have a diagnosis. Well, 99% of the time, you're not going to get a diagnosis because your man's not going to submit to that. He's not even going to go to therapy on his own. So what we do is, and I love how Dr. Romney has termed it in her new book, is antagonistic. They're antagonistic personality types. So if you're antagonistic, what do? What are your clusters of behaviors? You're just looking to really, it's like trying to poke the bear all the time with the people that are in your life, right? Antagonistic personality types are always trying to do something to make themselves look better, to be better, to make somebody feel less than, so that they can feel superior too. Because in the narcissistic spectrum, even though their persona or their mask is kind and loving and charismatic, and they are just the Boy Scout, the white knight, the one that's willing to go mow the neighbor's lawn, right? Or help the other neighbor move out of their home. Yet in their own homes, they're not doing any of those things, right? They're going and visiting their friend in the hospital. They're helping to take them to physical therapy. Yet you have surgery and you're post-op, not 2 days, and they invite their friend over to have a big banquet with all of the food that all of your friends brought over so that your family would have meals during your recovery. And you're left sitting on the side of your bed in so much pain on a footstool because you can't get back into your bed, and your partner has not come to even check on you to see how you're doing in 3 hours. And you're 2 days post-op. But to the world, wow, he's actually taken his friend to PT. What a good guy. Wow. He's actually going over and spending 4 days with his mom because her health is failing. And we all know, well, yeah, his mom's health is failing, so he's there to figure out financially where do things stand, because that's what he's concerned about. Because all the toys in the sandbox belong to him, right? So when we're looking at narcissistic personality disorder, what I try to help my clients focus on is, let's not get down in the weeds with the diagnoses. Let's look at the present behaviors. Because does it really matter whether they have a true personality disorder or not? If you're implementing protective boundaries and you're reclaiming your voice and you've made an intentional ask of him to do the work that he needs to do to repair the relationship, all we need to do is actually sit back and let him be him, right? The most loving thing that we can do in a relationship is to allow our partner to do exactly what we want. We want to live a life of freedom. without fear that's uncontrollable. Us in those choices, we make those choices in fidelity to our relationships. Individuals that are entitled make choices that are good for them. So when we are able to lay out what our non-negotiables are, implement our protector boundaries to protect ourselves, and have become grounded enough and be able to not sit in emotional reactivity and actually understand the arrows that are being shot at us, that we don't react and sit back, all we need to do is watch the choices that our spouse makes to see if there's going to be change or not. Because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for change in behavior. And if there is no change in behavior and the choices that are continuing to be made are not honoring to you, your children, your marriage, your personhood, you get to make a choice. And it is not my job nor my role to tell you whether you should stay or go. Every woman chooses to stay or go for their own reasons. And the only person that gets to make that choice is that woman or that partner if we're talking about individuals in an LGBTQIA community. There are many reasons we stay, and there are many reasons we go. And all of those are to be honored. There's no shame and there's no guilt in any of those decisions that we make when we are looking at a place of survival and figuring out how to remain safe and keep our children safe. Now, when we're talking about psychopaths and sociopaths, I believe they are more common than we believe that they are, right? And the truth is that where is that overlay? Like most people would say, not all abusers are narcissists, but all narcissists are abusers, right? When we're talking about sociopathy and psychopathy, we're just talking about things that are so far off the bell curve. And the difference is sociopathy, there's a social component. There's the charisma. There's the ability and to feel empathy. But that felt empathy is meant to be used against you, right? Psychopathy is evil. Sociopathy is evil. For me, those are two very hard things to distinguish, because you can have a psychopath show up that's charismatic, right? That will take everything that you have and utilize it for their own good. And you will never know until somebody else exposes it to you what you're dealing with. And in all of those disorders and coercive control, right? It's very easy to see when someone's an overt narcissist. It's very easy to see when someone uses violence to keep you under wraps and under control. But the coercive control, the covert, vulnerable narcissist, the sociopath and the psychopath, do we really need to know the distinction? What we know in those disorders is they're insidious and they're strategic. And unless you know what you're looking at, you will never see it. But once you see them, you will never unsee them.
Right. And I agree with you. I don't think that there's necessarily an importance of understanding if your person that your partner is psychopath versus sociopath versus narcissist, or a combination maybe of a couple of those. And I feel maybe that the need for certain individuals to be able to put that on their abusers to display some shame that we all carry as a victim of, Well, if I know that I was with a psychopath, then I understand it's all on him. It wasn't me, or a sociopath or a narcissist, any of those. But let's let's get into the coercive control more. I know you have talked a little bit about that, but definitely we need to understand what it is, what it looks like, the importance of it. I think it should be included in the domestic abuse definitions for sure.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yes. And I think in those certain places in the different states and the different countries where it is, there is probably a burden of proof of how can you prove that you are a victim of coercive control. So let's get into that. There's so much to talk about.
And kudos to UK, New Zealand, Queensland. Like Queensland just criminalized coercive control. Past, present, and future. Like that's amazing. There's not a state in the United States that's done that. Right? There's a handful of states that have nestled it underneath family law under the domestic violence statutes so that it can become we can become more aware, and that it increases the scope of what we are able to file a report on and have acted upon criminally. Yet, quite frankly, Ingrid, in order for that to happen, our police forces, our social workers, our CPS, our attorneys, our judges, our guardian ad litems, they all need to be willing to submit to the training, because having words on paper doesn't help us at all when nobody has eyes to see. And that's what I say. The eye sees what the mind knows. It doesn't matter if it's on our books. The horrible and terrible thing is that we can't get those people in the justice system whose job is to implement justice and protect us and protect the vulnerable are not willing to even take a course. Do you know that when you go to law school, you have 10 hours, 10 hours on domestic violence? That's it. And coercive control is never discussed. So let's talk about coercive control. Duluth created the power and control wheel. We have taken that from an abuse standpoint, power and control, and then from that, it spans out to at least 12 areas of where abuse can occur. Coercive control looks like, let me take you through a story. I'm just going to take, because it's easier to take you through a story to show you what it looks like. In the beginning stages, you start dating someone and they are wonderful. Like they have shown up and they're the person you have been looking for all of your life. All of the deepest hurts that you've had, they have been open to listen to them and empathize with them and care for you well, to give you a hug, to stand with you, to just listen to you as you cry. They understand your hopes and dreams, and they tell you that, wow, I am right behind you. I will support you 100% in what you want to do. They are the ones that are sending you flowers at work once a week while you're dating. And everybody in the office is going, oh my gosh, how did you find him? You are so lucky. They're the ones that are flying you up the coast just for lunch, right? They're the ones that are doing the big gestures, big trips, right? Big dreams. What are we going to do when we get married? What is our life going to look like? And they're making promises, and they're telling you everything that you want to hear. What we don't realize is that beginning part of our relationship where we think they are so in tune that they have such a great empathy and care and love, and they understand our past wounds and where we're healing from. And they're telling us what our future is going to look like and what that's going to be like and everything that we envision that we want a marriage and family to be like. They're data mining. They're love bombing. And they're future faking. Those are 3 forms of coercive control that also fall under gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of coercive control and involves all of those things. What you'll also notice during that dating and courting period is that every once in a while, they'll say or do something that makes you feel less than, that makes you feel that you need to be better, more, that somehow you are really lucky to have them, right? And it's in little things. It can be they want to go clothes shopping with you. And they're putting clothes over the door that you would never wear, that aren't your style, that are made for a completely different body type. What does that do to you? Wow. I guess I need to lose a little weight. Maybe I need to get some work done someplace, because if he's handing me those type of clothes, he doesn't even like the colors I wear. Right? So you go from wearing your beautiful pinks and salmons and lavenders to earth tone. What we don't realize is that it's not because earth tones are what he loves. It's because earth tones make you less noticeable. Earth tones blend you in to your surrounding area, right? Because even though they chose you for your beauty and your compassion and your vivaciousness, they want all of that, but it can't be more than who they are, right? You have to be one step less. They have to be the one who shines, and you're the one that's supposed to help them shine. What I will hear from 99.9% of my clients is everything changed on the honeymoon, right from the honeymoon. Whether it comes to sexual intimacy and lack thereof, or sexual intimacy and asking for things that weren't part of the dating and courting period, or it comes to being disregarded, or there is a silent treatment, there's a noticeable change from the honeymoon on. And that's why when a lot of people don't know coercive control, and you get so many years down the marriage, and you will have people say, you knew who you married. No, actually, we didn't. You didn't know who you married, right? You didn't know who you married. And then when you get married, you just notice little things. Like it comes down to, wow, I can't believe your mom said that about you. Wow, did you notice how your mom always, like, somehow she makes things go her way? That wasn't really a really nice thing that your brother said to you. Wow, I can't believe. And your friend said, what? I just think when you go out with your friends, they're just a little crazy, and I think they're going to get you in trouble. I don't know if that's really good for you. And then the minute you have a problem with one of those people, who are you going to go to? Who do you turn to? You turn to them. And they're all in your boat. And then your world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And their big thing is, you and I are married now. We are each other's person. It's us against the world. Nobody else understands us. It's isolation. That's coercive control.
And it sounds romantic, right?
And it sounds romantic, right? It sounds romantic. You know, you know what? We shouldn't talk to anybody else about our problems. The only people we should talk to about our problems is us, right? And those things, we should not be talking about them out in open. They should only be behind closed doors. Isolation, alienation, right? They alienate you. And they alienate you in a way that when you're with your friends, when you're with your family, what we don't realize till years later is we get up and walk away from the table and there's a comment thrown out. You know what? I don't know. I don't know. Look how brilliant she is. I don't know why she won't go back to work. I've been trying to get her to go back to work and she will not go back to work. And we really need the money. Yet between the two of you, you have an agreement. Because you can't go out and earn more money than him. Because that's a wound, right? As you get along in the marriage, it's little by little by little. Do you want to go out to dinner? I'd love to go out to dinner. Where would you like to go? Oh, I'd like to go to Italian. Oh, well, I really want Mexican. Well, I really don't want Mexican. Yeah, but I've been really craving Mexican. Like, let's go to Mexican tonight and then we can go to Italian on another night. Okay. Right? You'll find that whenever you say one thing or want one thing, they want the exact opposite. And it's not that they even want it. They just want you to agree with them. They just want you to do it their way. And as the relationship goes on, all of a sudden, because part of your agreement was you were going to give up your career and you were going to raise the children and you were going to do everything that you could to manage every other aspect of your lives so that they could climb the ladder. And then all of a sudden, you don't have a credit card in your name. You have a credit card, but you're an authorized user. And whether what he's doing or not with his credit and paying it off, even though it's not your credit card, it's still getting put on your credit report. You don't have a bank account in your name. You may have a joint account. A check may be deposited to it. He may tell everybody that you manage the finances. But what you do is you pay the bills. But you don't know what investments you have. You really don't know what debt you have. You don't know what assets you have. And you're not allowed access to the bank account. Because we don't need to know that. They're taking care of us. So then we have no financial resources or access to financial resources, which is the biggest thing besides the brainwashing and psychological damage that has been done to us by the time we figure out what's happened to us that keeps us there, right? When you do wake up, it is a very terrifying place to be because by that time, you've also experienced spiritual abuse. What that looks like with coercive control is usually in more of the fundamentalist, legalistic religions, top-down authoritarian structure. He's the head of the household. He's the spiritual leader. Even though he's a dip dot, not really involved in the church, doesn't really know scripture, doesn't really even know what it looks like within their faith to be the spiritual leader, by virtue of the fact that they are the man, They're the spiritual leader. And it's God, him, you, and the kids. So in the spiritual world, you are allowed to make a plea. You can make a plea to your husband if you don't agree with what they're doing and they're doing something that's really going to harm your family. And if they don't agree with you, you have to accept that and submit. And they can be making a really bad decision for the family, which most of the times they are, because it's a very selfish decision that serves their purpose. And in that, we then go to the pastor. We go to marriage counseling. And when we sit in there, we are very confused. We're being told that we're being avoidant and they're being pleasers, when in fact the truth is that they're just liars, right? And they've been lying and deceiving and manipulating things so that they get to do what they want to do when they want to do it, because they don't think that they have any reason to explain anything to us. It's none of our business, right? And then we're being made as being avoidant push pullers, right? When actuality, because we're in this vortex of, let me do some big, beautiful gesture and apologize to you for all my bad behavior. And I'm going to change and I'm going to do these things and I'm going to lean in. And then we want to lean in because we love them. And then out of nowhere, they do something so harmful and hurtful and damaging to us psychologically that we pull away. That is a healthy response. All right. And then in the church, what ends up happening is they go, well, if you just loved him more, if you just had more sex with him, then things would be better. If you just took the high road and if you just, were Christ to him in the marriage, then things would get better. Well, wow, how messed up is that in our communities? Because here we as women, if you're a faith-based, Christ-centered individual, the women are called to be the church in your marriage. The husband is called to be Christ. So now, not only are you asking us to submit to spiritual leadership that doesn't exist, now you're also asking us to be Christ. So now you're asking us to take on both roles. We're supposed to submit. We're supposed to love more. We're supposed to be the ones first through the door, first to bend the knee, first to acquiesce. That's not sound. And that just makes for a home where your abuser is emboldened even more to abuse. And they just learn how to abuse in more coercive ways, using all of the language that's supposed to be beneficial to your marriage, and they use it to weaponize you, right? Emotionally, psychologically, you're consistently dealing with, wow, yeah, I hear you, but if you had just done it this way, it would have been good. You know what? I know you really tried, but the salmon, it was just a little dry. Next time, if you just try it this way, if you ever come to them with a true issue, they DARVO you. They deny what they did, right? They accuse you of doing it, and they reverse the victim and offender. So all of you who are listening to this, that you spent those 2-hour conversations that you go, oh my gosh, it is a circular conversation. We go in to talk about one thing. 2 hours later, I have no idea how everything that we talked about, the issue that I came to him about, now I'm the one walking away feeling that I need to do the work on that, right? And they do it to sidestep accountability and responsibility, right? 11 o'clock at night. Text comes in on the phone. You guys are in bed. It's from a woman named Jill. Honey, who is texting you at 11 o'clock and who's Jill? Why are you looking at my phone? Well, the light's on. I can see, like right there, I see her name. That's really intrusive and it's a violation of my privacy. I can't believe that you would be doing that. I'm just asking who Jill is and why is Jill texting you at 11 o'clock at night? Do you not trust me? I think you really have a trust issue, and I really think it's because of your childhood issues. I know your dad did those things to your mom. I'm not that guy. And it's really offensive to me that you would be accusing me of something like that. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking who Jill is and why she's texting you at 11 o'clock at night. Well, I have a very heavy job. I have a lot of responsibilities. Sometimes things go over work hours. Do you not want me to provide for you? How do you think I provide for this family? Right? I really think that you need to step back and think about why you're asking me those questions because, wow, you have a lot of insecurity and jealousy. That's DARVO.
And that's what they love to do. You end up apologizing. You end up apologizing for asking a simple question of who is Jill.
That's right. That's right. And then what happens is we ended up developing and engaging in, because we have to, cognitive dissonance, right? There comes a place in our lives where we have to say, my gut feels something is off, but he's telling me I'm wrong. He's telling me it's not how I see it. He's telling me it's not how I received it. He's telling me that that's not how it is. He's telling me that I'm thinking those things because I'm seeing them through my childhood trauma. So who am I going to trust? Am I going to trust myself or am I going to trust him, the person I was supposed to meant to provide and care and love me? And then we disconnect our brain from our gut. And do you know that we have more sensory warning system neurons in our gut than anywhere else in our body? That's why when they say it's a gut instinct, it's a gut instinct, right? When we go through, hold on, one moment, I just need to take a drink.
Okay, you take a drink, and I'll say this is why years after you get out of a relationship, you're still questioning, did that really happen? Did I exaggerate? Because you still have that dissonance there.
You have a different, and right. And that's the one thing that we have to work on in therapy a lot, because we grow up on fairy tales, the White Knight and the Prince. We were taught that those butterflies in our system, when we meet someone, that is true love, right? That is chemistry. No, that is our warning system. When you sense that with somebody, we are taught that that's an attraction, when actually that is our body's physical response saying, danger, danger, Mr. Roger, run, run. There is a fire and it's about to catch you, right? Don't look back. And yet, because of the patriarchy, we are trained to believe that that's a good thing. And it's not a good thing. And that's why when we meet a healthy, loving, compassionate individual and there are no fireworks, we think there's no chemistry and we don't pursue that relationship. That's a healthy individual. So when we walk into those situations, when I start working with women and they have all of these symptoms, migraines, chronic pain, FMS, polyautoimmune, a lot of them have already gone through breast cancer or a breast cancer scare. The body keeps score. So through all of those years when you don't know what's happening to you, right? The problems in your marriage aren't because of you, but you've spent 15, 20, 25, 40 years in a marriage thinking it's you, and you have constantly been doing whatever it is you need to do to learn how to be a better individual, a better wife, heal your wounds, heal your trauma, because you've been told the problem in your marriage is because of you. Right? When your spouse shows up to marriage counseling with a 26-page presentation folder and tells the therapist that, yes, he's willing to work on the marriage and that he'd like to discuss each one of those 26 topics with his bride so that she can learn how to be a better wife. That's why they show up to marriage counseling, right? So all of these years, we've been thinking it's us.
Right.
And then we figure out, oh my gosh, no, it's not because of us. It was happening to us. And we start reconnecting our brain and our gut. The first thing I tell my clients is, I know because you are now choosing to make healthy choices and to heal the trauma and the wounding, it would make sense that things would start getting better. But this is what happens when you first start healing and you start addressing your trauma, is your body goes, holy heck, you see me, you hear me, you're listening to me. And now I'm not going to let you ignore me. And all of those things get worse before they start getting better. And that right there can be very disheartening when your coach or therapist doesn't preface you and prepare you for that. Because if you're prepared for it, you're like, okay, I'm going to get through this. My body's just saying, you can't ignore me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get out and you've done the healing, that's a big part of the healing, Ingrid, is you just said, did that happen? Did I really see that way? Is that really how it was? And that's what we do. In present time, we take what's happening, we relate it to an experience that you had, and we take the time to reframe it. And I help you reframe it accurately as to what happened to you when you're still looking at it as to it being because of you.
Right.
Right?
Now, your clients, do they range from various stages of abuse?
Absolutely. And I'll be very honest with you. Most of my clients find me because they've been working from a place of infidelity, whether that is emotional, affairs, one-offs, prostitutes, porn, same sex. It's usually some sort of infidelity that they've found out about, and they've gone to multiple different therapists, and whatever is going on is not working. There's no change, there's no movement, and they're at their wits' end. And when they get to me, they've heard a little bit about of abuse. They've heard a little bit about coercive control, and they're going, I I feel like that's more what I'm dealing with, right? And that is the truth. That's how they find me. So, and what ends up happening is through this, we end up finding, yes, they're doing these things, they're sexual acting out in whatever way they're sexually acting out. That is a form of coercive control. That is a form of abuse, right? Anytime you do anything without the knowledge and consent of your partner that is outside your marital vows, that's abusive. Okay? If we showed up on the altar and our man said to us, hey, baby, I love you. I love you. I love you. You are the queen. You are my queen. You're the queen of my harem. Yes, yes, I got full disclosure. I'm going to have a harem. But I don't want you to worry about that because you're going to be the only one that I love. So just let you know, how many of us would have stood up and said yes?
Right.
That's full disclosure, right? And there are people in this world that choose to have an open relationship, and it's full consent, full disclosure. You do you, boo, right? That's your relationship. It's full consent. So when I look at things like, yes, am I going to say that sexual addiction does exist? Yes, it does. I'm going to say, though, I believe sexual addiction has been used as an excuse to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. And for me, that's a sense of entitlement, and therefore it falls under abuse.
I agree.
Yeah.
So with your coach, let's get into your coaching a little bit. Is it one-on-one? It's virtual?
And I do groups.
And you do groups as well. Okay.
And I love it all. It's all virtual. I mean, quite frankly, with my background and my education, I did consider going back and getting my PhD, and then I went, "Oh Lord, nobody needs more education, especially me. Like it's like I don't need to go back to school." And then when I actually thought about it, I was like, when you go get your master's or your PhD, you're confined by state. I didn't want to be confined by state. Very few people understand narcissistic abuse and coercive control. I wanted to be able to work internationally, which is why I became credentialed with the International Coaching Federation, which is the gold standard. It's pretty much being a board certified surgeon, right? To become a board certified surgeon, you have a whole lot of steps and a whole lot of practice and a whole lot of cases that you have to do before you're able to even sit for the test. And I wanted that. I wanted people to be able to look at me and say, "Oh, she's done the work." And I wanted to be able to work globally. And I love working globally. I do. I have clients in Italy, New Zealand, Switzerland, the UK. When people have a need, they find you. And for me, part of my belief is that what you go through, what you grow through, what you choose to pick up as your passion isn't meant just for you. It's meant for you to help others. It's kind of part of my social justice bent. I have a very deep, sharp social justice button. And when people don't have access to the information that they need to make an informed decision, that drives me. That drives my passion. Because you can choose to stay or go. But if you're sitting in a vortex and you have no idea what's happening to you, but you know something's wrong, but the people that you have access to where you live don't have that training or that expertise, you stay for years longer. You may die in that relationship. And I want women to have a choice. I want them to be informed. I want them to know what they're experiencing. And that's why I chose to work globally and become a coach. And it's why I do everything via Zoom.
Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is shadowandsoul.com. Just go to it's my website, shadowandsoul.com. Right up in the top right, it says schedule a consultation. Click on it and you can schedule a consultation with me. Because what I do is so specific, the type of abuse I deal with is so specific, and the type of betrayal that I deal with is so specific. I like to meet with my clients first, because there are a lot of betrayal trauma coaches out there that can help a lot of women. There are very few betrayal trauma coaches that are well versed in narcissistic abuse and coercive control. And those women need a different level of therapeutic care. And those are the women that I work with. If I meet with you and you're not a good fit for me, I want to send you to somebody who is, right? This is an investment. You healing, your self-care, you resolving your trauma and healing and growing, it's an investment. It's an investment of your time, and it's an investment of your money. And I know many clients that have spent time with therapists that weren't the right fit, right? And so part of my goal is I have a wide network of connections because I want to know the right people to refer you to if I'm not the right person, so that you get the help that you need.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Okay, so before we close, Dr. Lisa, is there any specific word of encouragement or wisdom you would like to leave as a lasting impression for listeners?
You know, I love Mary Oliver, and her quote that stands with me is from her poem, which is and the poem's all about what choices do you want to make? Like, you have decisions to make. How do you want to live your life? And it's, what are you going to do with your one big, beautiful, precious life? You're not broken. Have you been silenced? Yes. Have you chosen not to use your voice to keep you and yourself and your children safe? Absolutely. But I believe that you know yourself best. It's why I became a coach. My core belief is that you may not know which way to go. You are in trauma fog. You are in brain fog. You are confused. You are heartbroken and you're devastated. But healing is possible. And I know that because I did it. And if I did it, you can do it. All right? We all have the capacity. And I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy. It's not easy. It is hard, brutal, deep work to heal, especially when you have been traumatized and demoralized and had your personhood stolen from you in such a way that you need to actually rebuild who you are to reclaim who you are. I think it's very sad in this world when they look at us and say, how come she can't just move on? How come she can't just get it together? I'm so sorry, but prisoners of war were broken by coercive control and live with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. Why is it that we expect in this world that women and wives are supposed to just move on when we don't even expect that of our prisoners of war? So when you're healing and you make that choice, it's courageous and it's brave and it's bold, and you're worth it and you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve a beautiful, big life where you get to make choices that align with your values and beliefs. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lisa, for your time and for all of your work that you're doing to help.
My pleasure. My privilege. My privilege.
Yes. Thank you again, Dr. Lisa, for joining me today. And thank you, warriors, for listening. The links Dr. Lisa was referring to, as well as her 1 in 3 profile, can be found in the show notes. I will be back next week with another episode for you. Until then, stay strong. And wherever you are in your journey, always remember you are not alone. Find more information, register as a guest, or leave a review by going to the website 1in3podcast.com. That's the number 1, IN, the number 3, podcast.com. Follow 1 in 3 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 3 podcast. To help me out, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 1 in 3 is a .5 Pinoy production. Music written and performed by Tim Crow.